Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Victoire for Kids. I am your host, Emir. This episode will be raising funds for the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Click on the link in the description of the video for more information and to donate if you feel so inspired. Today's special guests will be Pretty Peter Avalon of AEW and ROH and WWE superstar and legend, Mr. Paul Roma. We'll be discussing the basics of professional wrestling, what it takes to get into the business, morals and values, and sharing some stories of the road from these two guests. We also ask before we begin today's broadcast that you kindly subscribe to our channel, like and share our videos. It helps us spread these inspirational pieces much, much further. Sit back and enjoy the very first episode of Victoire for Kids. Victoire. Sponsored by Clark's Nutrition and Natural Foods Market. For all your healthy produce, supplements, and grocery needs, visit Clark's Nutrition. For all your pro wrestling memorabilia and to meet and greet some of your favorite superstars, visit the Wrestling Guy Store in Huntington Park, California, and in Phoenix, Arizona. Alternatively, if you want to order online, visit www.thewrestlingguystore.com. A tattoo is for life, and so why not visit one of the most reputable tattoo companies in California, Trusted Tattoo Company and Mobile Body Art Bus, 760-645-0485. Looking to advertise your business? Look no further than the premier Southern California advertising magazine, Your Villa Magazine, 951-990-8855. Go ahead, be a rebel, and support independent news in the San Diego area. Valley News, also offering advertising opportunities, 760-723-7319. Casual clothing that makes you feel like $1 million. Or if you are seeking custom t-shirts, look no further than J Money Clothing, 760-367-8566. Palm Springs, California, Indian Wells, California, Rancho Mirage, California. They are all considered a destination hotspot, a second home haven. With an exquisite record of negotiating the finest deals for clients, Lowell Folsom III and Associates always deliver. Contact Lowell today at 760-391-2504. And now, on with the show. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Victoire for Kids. On this particular episode, we will be raising funds for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. The link is in the description of the video. And to help me with this, I am joined by two professional wrestling greats. Let us start first with Mr. Paul Roma, a WWE superstar, a legend, part of some great tag teams, a former member of the Four Horsemen in WCW. And then we also have joining us from AEW and Ring of Honor, Pretty Peter Avalon, a decorated performer indeed, a true master psychologist in the world of professional wrestling. So we have two greats with us today. And this episode is titled, Let's Decide If Pro Wrestling is for You. So, Peter, Paul, no, I did not rob Peter to pay Paul, but nonetheless, let's start by explaining the difference between being a spectator and then performing as a professional wrestler in the business. So, Paul, let's start with you. What is the difference?
Well, I think it's the difference really is what you perceive, how hard or easy it is or isn't. And that's what makes the difference between somebody who's doing it and someone who is watching it, thinking to themselves, oh, this is easy, I can do it, before they've even attempted it. Kind of like the Monday morning quarterback.
Okay. So just simple like that. So Peter, what do you say?
Say the question one more time.
So explain the difference, at least for you, being a spectator, being a fan of the business, and now being involved in the business on a constant schedule. How did it change for you?
Oh boy, it just got more stressful for sure. Like, uh, as a fan, it's a Friday night. Or if you're watching on television, it's a Monday night. It's a Thursday night, whichever show you're watching, I guess. It's just an evening. It's an evening, 2 hours, 3 hours now, I guess. If you're going to a show, it was a beer and watching something spectacular. But it was only for a few hours. When you are in the business, it's 24 hours. It's your whole day. It's your whole week. It's your whole month. It's everything. So it's a lot more consuming and overwhelming.
Yeah. Do you say, Paul, I'm going to throw it back to you. Would you say that, let's just say you were a super fan of pro wrestling before getting into the business. Do you think it dilutes that somewhat when you actually become part of the product? Do you think that fan within you kind of fades away, or does it remain? Or at least for you, did it remain?
Well, that's wow. So that's a question that really isn't for me. I didn't watch professional wrestling before I got into it. I was asked, why don't you become a professional wrestler? You know, you're a big guy, blah, 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 by a family friend. And I was like, I didn't know what he was talking about because I knew very, very, maybe 3%
Yeah.
about professional wrestling because
Yeah.
again, I didn't watch it. When it was brought up to me, and then I went home to watch it. I was like shaking my head. Yeah, this isn't for me. So yeah, it's for the people out there. It's really not a fair question for me.
So let's do this then, Paul. Let's flip it. Let's go the other direction. So, did you become a fan once you were in the business? Did you start following it and looking back and things like that?
No,
No.
I no, I didn't. No, I
I love it.
I didn't know who Hulk Hogan was. I didn't go back to watch matches. I watched the matches to learn more while I was there, live time. So I didn't know who, everybody talked about Dusty Rhodes. And I said, well, who's this guy, Dusty Rhodes? And, when am I ever going to see him? And they're like, well, he's down in another organization.
Yeah.
I was like, well, we're in their state. So am I going to see this guy or what? So I was, for the most part, completely ignorant
Yeah.
to the world of professional wrestling.
All right. Well, Peter, I'm going to kick it over to you now then. Actually, now you were a fan, obviously, before getting into the business, correct?
I was a fan of TV wrestling, but I guess it's like depends on when you started watching it. I guess I had a certain idea of what wrestling was because of the stuff I was watching on TV at the time, which was late 90s, early 2000s WWF. So that to me was what wrestling was. I didn't know anything else. When I finally got into wrestling, I just had discovered indie wrestling not too long ago. So
Yeah.
it's
Now,
kind of.
so for you then, did the fan get diluted once you started working in the business?
It changed for sure. Uh, I'm not. I think you have. I think if you are a fan, it's you have this kind of stay a fan um, to stay in it. If you're going that way, if we're a fan and got into it, you have to stay a fan. So hopefully you can stick with it. I think when you're not a fan anymore is when you lose maybe the spark, the edge, the creativity. So I try to stay a fan, even though some days it is the most difficult thing in the world to remain a fan of something you used to love, and now that you understand it more, it's definitely difficult to love sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like revealing, and Paul, I if you concur, it's like in Hollywood. Once you see how the magic is done, once the veil is lifted,
Mhm.
it's hard to view it in, with the innocent eyes of a child, as it were, as the
Yeah,
fan.
don't learn how the sausage is made. Is
Yeah, yeah,
but
secret
I,
sauce.
I will say this in the defense of wrestling. When you see the talent that is, when you're wrestling and you see the talent that's before you, that is greater than you.
Yeah.
I think that keeps you pretty much engaged because, what we call a pop, right? You look at the guy do something and you say, oh, wow, oh, that was really cool. I dig that move. Wish I thought of it. Or, yeah, I wouldn't attempt that if on myself. I think that was what kept us, fully enthralled or keep us involved.
Yeah.
Not to dislike it, or for lack of a better word, not to give up once you found out how the magician did it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You start to appreciate other aspects of it. Now you're behind the curtain. So it's like you, instead of just like watching it, now you're trying to, you're trying to get that pop. You're trying to get that feeling. You're trying to think of something creative, something that could give the audience some kind of reaction, some kind of, you're a part of some kind of angle. You want to see how it turns out. So it's like, yeah, you do start to have you have a different appreciation of the art completely, because you're attacking it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So would you say then that the creativity factor goes up a notch, Paul, with you in terms of creativity when you were getting that inspiration by seeing your peers? Yeah, I should have come up with that. I could have come up with that. Do you think that spurred your creativity more?
So it's kind of like a catch-22. So I always wanted, I tried to be the creative one. So I wanted to be that person that, could jump and leapfrog somebody, higher drop kick. So that's where it kind of went for me. But learning the psychology of everything, that was different. That was the key.
Yeah.
That
Paul,
changes everything once you learn that.
yeah. Paul, your camera froze a little bit. I'm not sure.
Are we back?
You're back now.
Okay.
You're back.
Yeah. So, it was because I was around the very best. I was very fortunate to be brought in an era where there were just so many greats. Whether they were wrestling for WWF or they were down in WCW or down south in another organization. I was amongst the best, and I got to watch and be taught. So Mr. Fuji is my trainer, but along those lines, I had the Harley Race, the Mr. Perfects, his father.
Yeah.
Just people brains I can pick. Les Thornton, just on and on and on and on. The list is long and distinguished. So, for me, it was a blessing. I didn't know what I had, if that's fair, enough to say. I had the greatest magicians. And, did I take advantage of it? No, I didn't really know what I had in the beginning. As my time went on, yes. Then I realized, wow, I could pick these guys' brains. Hell, I don't even have to pick their brains. After I get done with a match, they come over to me and sit me down and say, okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
And then Peter
again.
Yeah, sorry, Paul.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Go on.
I was gonna say, Peter, for you, do you find that it spurred your creativity more being around these other guys? Does that help you to become more creative?
Oh, absolutely. You're trying to put together something that's going to get some kind of reaction, or you're going to go out there with an idea and try something new, take your character this way, and what can you do? It's a different kind of creativity. What can you do that's different? What can you do that's better? How can you do something that they did and do it a different way? Things like that, because maybe someone does something you had in mind that you wanted to do. Okay, well, I'm not going to do that. Let me switch it up and figure out something new. Let me go a different way with my match. Where are we at on the show? Okay, let's try this. Let's do this. So your creativity, you start putting things in other places, tweaking things, doing something different. Maybe you're gonna, okay, this match had this their heat went a little long, so maybe I'll shorten it up here and do something different over here and try something here. Maybe I won't change. We don't need to wrestle here. We could just start fighting here, and your brain starts moving a million miles a minute with different ideas that you could do for your piece of work based on the bigger piece of work, the show. So, and along Paul was saying about being able to pick certain people's brains and everything, that just helps you to become a more creative and fuller artist in there. Your canvas is a little bit more broad because now you have potentially more ideas, more techniques. Maybe somebody saw an idea that you had and has said, hey, how about this way? Absolutely, Paul, you had some of the best minds in the business for sure. We have some incredible minds too, especially at AEW. In today's world of wrestling, there's Dean Malenko back there and Jerry Lynn, so you can always uh, pick their brain and see where they're going. I love when Christopher Daniels is my producer for my match because he is just I first wrestled him and met him, I called him a wizard. He's a wizard in there with certain stuff because he can come in and just you give him one idea, here comes an entire match, and it's like, oh, that just made my job so much easier, because he gave me this incredible, full, complete concept. So I like to go with him with ideas. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking this, and he goes, oh, but how about this here and this, and this, and then it's like, oh, they make you see something in such a different way, and then you go out there and you try to paint this workshopped piece of art, that you're having from conversations with different people in the back. That you have from just talking about different concepts in the ring. And, so yeah, for sure ups your creativity 100%.
So those are some of the guys for you. And obviously, Paul, you mentioned some of the guys. Who were some of the ones that you spent a lot of time picking their brains with, Paul, back in the golden era?
Well, obviously Fuji, because he was on the road with me. Harley Race, a lot. I remember one match I had with Harley, and he started saying some stuff to me, and he goes, "Listen, I'm going to take care of you in the ring." I said, "Okay," and he said, "Just don't worry about a thing." And there's this old saying, if you could wrestle a broomstick, then you're a great wrestler. And I was that broomstick for Harley. He moved me around into positions, and we went from one thing to another. Next thing you know, I'm behind him. Next thing you know, I'm in a hammerlock, and I'm just in amazement. I'm shaking my head, going, "How is this guy doing this to me? He's getting me in every position he wants me in, and I'm not doing a thing." So
Hey, props to you for following though, Paul. You're following along the way. Like it does take two to tango. It's like he has these ideas in your head, but for you, man, you're to be able to follow the teacher like that. That's some pro stuff.
Well, listen, I appreciate that, but believe me when I tell you, it was all him.
I believe it. Yeah.
All him. So, and then I had actually contacted your boss in AEW and wanted to come in and try and show him how to better the product, write storylines. Never heard back, so I just let it go by the wayside. But I think there is a lot of talent there. I think a lot of it's being wasted. I think there's a lot of talent there that shouldn't be there. They're only there for, maybe because of who they know or who they're attached to or whatever. But the case basically is, he could do more with less. So, but just my opinion. What are you going to do? At the end of the day, sometimes we always think we know more than others.
It's different perspectives.
Different
Right,
perspective,
right.
different perspective,
Right.
but I also think that there are many parts to make a successful machine. And just from the ring crew to the ring announcer to the cameramen to the commentators to the wrestlers, the referees, it all works together to create a fantastic product. And
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
you're gonna have the stories too. So now let's get on to some formal training that may help somebody, some youngster who's, or maybe even someone in their 20s. We never know. Sometimes people start later. People have started even in their 30s. But any formal training, Peter, I'm going to start with you. Any formal training that you think may help somebody prepare for that life on the road in pro
So
wrestling,
formal training before actual pro wrestling training.
or even getting into the ring?
Yeah, being a sport be active since you were young. Not just playing on the playground or running outside. Be a part of organized sports from an early early age. I was doing the kickboxing. I did youth basketball, so I was trying to understand different, just moving your body and understanding your body. I feel like, especially like nowadays, and at least within like the past, my 10, 20 years, uh, that people kind of get into wrestling thinking they don't need to be any kind of athletic, and then they figure out real fast it's not for them because they can't even move their bodies. Um, stay steady with athletics all the way throughout high school, and stay in organized sports in high school. Be a part of some kind of team. I was on the wrestling team. I was on the track team. And if you can, even keep going through college. If you're good at a sport and you're doing well and stick with it, see how far you can go in it, absolutely. Because then, like Paul's saying, these are the best. Like WWE, AEW, they have the best athletes. These guys are the best at moving their body in the realm of pro wrestling. Guys are former football players, former basketball players, former Olympians, former anything. I was varsity. Uh, I didn't go level championship, but I know how to move my body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but just get to that level. Think of the
Yeah.
athlete you had to be.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
varsity. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you could tie someone in a pretzel.
Yeah. That's right.
That's
right.
Yeah. So I agree immensely with Pete. Playing sports, all different sports, and I think he'll agree with me on this one. But I personally never found anything as challenging or harder than pro wrestling because it was a different abuse on your body, different pounding that your body took. So, again, these Monday morning quarterbacks who think that they can just go in the ring and it's like landing on your bed, on your back. It's not like that at all. It is very real. We are professionals. We're basically considered professional stuntmen is really what we are. So, you have to do things that may look like you're killing somebody, but how do you not hurt them and not hurt yourself? So, again, it is an art in order to do this, and it's not for everybody. If you're going to go into a school, my one suggestion I can make is find out what you should know. What is the teacher's claim to fame? Where did they wrestle before? Was it AEW, WWE, WWF? Who are they? What have they accomplished in the life of professional wrestling? And then you go to that school. If they're worthy, of you paying to get into that school. Otherwise, there's a lot of fly by nights. People just backyard wrestling. They purchase a ring. They find a place to put it, and then they're charging you, and that's where you're going to get hurt and maybe crippled, paralyzed. So
100%.
It's also another very real situation that could occur. You're one move away, one slip away from paralysis.
Right, and it could happen at a great school, a great professional wrestling school, but the odds of it happening are a lot less. Are really slim, because they're looking out. They know, how to train you. These other people that are just purchasing rings and saying, "Hey, I got a wrestling school." Where have they been? What have they done? What what are their attributes there? What have they accomplished in their life that they can put a stamp on? Pete can talk. He could say what he wants to say because he has credentials to back that up. And that's important. If he opens up a school, this is what he's done.
Right.
So it's legit. But
do your
again,
research for sure.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people before you come to my school, do your research. Go check out other schools. Just remember one thing. If you're going to be a professional pitcher in baseball, do you want to get, trained by, Ron Guidry or Clemens, or do you want to get, taught by some kid who played AAA ball? I mean, there's the difference right there. These guys are Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where you're going to go. without a doubt. So it's kind of like buyer beware.
Yeah. Good. Very good. So I'm going to ask each of you as well now. Recount to the audience your very first pro wrestling training experience. So we'll start, Paul, with you, and your very first time walking in there. What were you feeling? What were you thinking? Brutally honest. How did your body feel? And who was around you at that time?
Mario Mancini, Gino Carabello, Seth, um, oh gosh, PJ, just some guys. They were, were involved with the WWF at the time. Enhancers for the most part to start. Didn't know what to expect. Took a few, how can you say it? Moves, made a few moves, took a few bumps, but it wasn't so much the first day. So, I came out of there and went, wow, man, that's tough. I mean, I played semi-pro football and, you know, I did a lot of things, kickboxed and boxed and basketball, baseball, you name it. Only thing I never did was play hockey. But at the end of the day, I was like, wow, my body's pretty sore, pretty beat up. And it was just, we didn't do all that much as far as I was concerned. However, as I progressed on at this first school that I attended, I found out that they were trying to end my career before it started. So they actually did end up hurting me. I extended my elbow, but and almost got my bottom teeth pushed through my lip. Didn't know any better, asking me, hey, let me try this on you. Let me try that. Well, I trusted them because I've been around so many people that you could trust. These weren't those guys. And only till I had gotten with Mr. Fuji did I really start to excel.
Yeah. So that was a very different time, Paul. And of course, we've heard the professional wrestling stories. Back then, it was very different. Although I presume, Peter, that probably does still exist somewhere in some places.
Oh, absolutely, that still exists.
Yeah. Peter, what was it like for you? Where were you training? Who was there? What did you feel like? All that good stuff.
Man, my very first training was at just this. It was a ring in a jujitsu jujitsu dojo warehouse thing in Anaheim. It was hot, no AC, and walking in was just this 16 by 16 indie ring. But at that point, I had never been next to a wrestling ring. I had gone to wrestling shows and seen it, but to be actually there and be able to like touch the mat and touch the ropes and everything, it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. It was just as I'm sweating from the no AC that's there. They had the roll up door pulled up though to get a breeze going, so there's at least that. Um, but it was one of those things like, oh my God, it's an actual wrestling ring. This is cool. And then when as they're kind of showing us around and hey, you want to get in the ring, which I know from hearing stories from different people, they're like, you got in the ring the first day? Wow, I can't believe it. It's like, yeah, so you do the thing where you get in really awkwardly and don't know how to get into a ring. So it was just a, a, a big time, like, blow up. Wow, this is amazing. My eyes were huge, stars in my eyes. Like, this is going to be the coolest thing ever. And then they told us to get out of the ring, put our, and get ready to work out. And then they kicked our ass with exercise. So you got to my first moment of stars in the eyes, and then all of a sudden they really put us to work and start to beat us up with the workouts. Right to work.
And I was going to ask you both. So, Paul, how old were you at that time when you first walked in to start training?
Well, they told me I was too old. They told me I was 22 at the time. So, yeah, they said I was too old, but, going to take my money from me and give me a shot.
Yeah. And then what about you, Peter? How old were you?
I was 18.
Okay.
It was my 18th birthday, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
a gift, a present from your parents?
Present, no, not from my parents. Oh no, absolutely not. They would have preferred me to do anything and everything else. It was a present to myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously, as we know, Paul, you were invited there, correct? So you were asked, hey, you become pro wrestler. So you didn't
Right.
need to seek it out, sort of thing.
Well, what happened was the guy who asked me to become a pro wrestler knew Arnold Scullin, who was one of the agents for WWF at the time. And he said, "Come on, we're going to go to a wrestling show." It was at a local school. WWF was there. So he walks me in and he says, "Come on, I want to go introduce you to this guy," and yada yada yada. So I walk in, and not knowing anything about anything for the most part. And he introduces me to him, and we shake hands, and then he says to Arnold, "Why don't you put my guy in the ring?" And I'm looking at him like he's nuts, right? Because like, what are you getting me into here? So he goes, "Oh, I can't do that." And so Arnold looks at me, and now I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I wrestled in high school, junior high, and high school, but this is like a whole nother world. And he goes, "Well, do you want to go in?" He said like that to me. My guy did, and I was like, "I guess, what the hell? I guess so." Well, I'm not looking at it as wrestling. I'm looking at it as I got to go beat somebody up. I mean, did I want to really go in? No, it's not my world. This guy, like I said, he was a professional fighter. So to him, he thinks he's going to go in there and fight. That's really not it. But Arnold said, no, no, no. He's got to go to wrestling school and yada yada yada. So I went out and watched the matches, but that was pretty much it. That was my first real taste of professional wrestling. Like I said, I didn't watch it, so didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. I got to ask one more question before we end today's episode. So, Paul, now in your time when you were training, in terms of let's call it the realness of the training, was it, hard, full contact? I mean, I want to see the difference between Peter's time and your time. Was it a lot more intense? Like people were actually getting seriously hurt, or was it still controlled to a point with you, Paul?
Oh, it was controlled. It
Okay.
was definitely controlled. Like I said, and like Pete, attested to, there are guys that are jealous.
Mhm.
You're going to take their spot. They want that chance to get in there. So instead of relying on their ability, they're better off trying to get you hurt so that their shot still stands.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was. Once I started getting in, after a week or two, it was let's try and hurt this guy. And
Mhm.
common sense stopped me from doing a lot of things. Which
Yeah.
the guy said, "Oh, just let me do this." I'm like, "Oh hell no, you're not going to do that." I mean, I know that he was trying to hurt me. I'm going to get hurt, but I never forgot it.
Mhm.
You always, again, the old saying is seeing people on the way up are the same you're going to see on the way down.
Yeah.
So, I kept things like that in mind. And if our paths crossed, then I acted a little different towards them.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about
You
for you?
just don't, you
So,
don't forget. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, for sure. Absolutely.
what about you, Peter? Was it a little bit of that kind of dog eat dog even when you started training?
Not so much physically. Um, we're at a different, we were, it's a different, it was a different school. It's not one that you get sent um, to be looked at or anything. You were training it now to become just an indie wrestler and get yourself on these different indie shows in the area and hope that you get on a good indie show that has people that don't just wrestle in the area. I guess out here's example would be, you try to get on a PWG so that you can meet a lot of these international wrestlers that are working different places and see if you can eventually get a match that gets looked at by anybody that's worth a shit so that you can eventually get invited to one of these better schools or maybe looked at for like an NXT or whatever like that. It was a lot of what I remember from my first school was that because my class was twice a week, and it was a part of a school that had other schools a part of it. And I remember I was able to pay X amount of dollars a month and then I would be able to attend all the classes. But like we were talking about earlier, I did my research on every single trainer. It's the age of the internet, so luckily I was able to, search people's on Google and look at their old MySpace profiles and pull up anything that was what they have done. And that's where I realized that the class I was going to was the only class being ran by people who actually were doing stuff that were worth anything. Guys that were doing PWG and working the main events at like EWF for Jesse and things like that, holding titles for him. It was like Charles Mercury and Ronan and Scorpio Sky. Scorpio Sky is still wrestling. He works with me over at AEW. So it's just it was more along the lines of that. But from going to different classes, I don't remember people trying to physically harm me. I do remember instances, but it wasn't an overall thing. It was more so uh, passive aggressive. So it's like they go and maybe are try to be better friends with the booker or promoter. They're better at talking and politicking in the back through bullshitting than actual their hard work and everything. Uh, you could especially in my instance, in my case, with a lot of these coming up back in the when we were coming up when I was training, I was physically better at wrestling, and I was a far better entertainer. I just lacked a lot of the other stuff. I didn't want to go and play that passive bullshit in the back and be everybody's friend. I wanted to be a nice guy and liked, but I'm not looking to like become your friend just so you'll book me and kiss ass and things like that. And I didn't have that. I still don't that instinct to want to hurt
Yeah.
people just
Yeah.
to elevate
Right.
myself.
Well,
You know,
the difference between a clothesline and a clothesline.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yes,
And most people don't. We do.
no, yeah,
We get it. And that's the difference. Some
yeah,
guys, they'll take the first one and they're just like, wow, he's a little stiff. No, he's sending you a message.
yeah. He's telling you,
But again, if you opened up a school, you have credibility. There's the difference. You have a
Mhm.
history. There's the difference. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And a lot of, like I said, a lot of these schools, these kids, young kids, want to do the right thing, get to a school, but they're spending a lot of money for no reason because they're never going to be looked at. They're never going
right,
to learn anything right. So
right.
it makes it sad. Actually, it's pretty sad.
I've noticed a lot of guys. They kind of there's a lot. There's the poop loop, you know what I mean? There's the real low level people that run these bad shows. It's a dude with a ring, and maybe they've had a handful of matches and they're training people. A lot of that exists, and it's all over. And if you don't have that hunger to want to find these better places and go to these better places and train with these better people, then people just kind of default and become complacent on this low level loop, and they just continue that shit circle of bad training and bad wrestling and hurting people. And the worst is when it's one thing, in my opinion, when someone hurts you with intention. You know what I mean?
Right.
They give you a clothesline in the throat because that was their intention. They want to hurt you. They're sending a message. But then it feels so much worse when you get that clothesline in the throat from someone that just doesn't know at all what they're doing. They did it because they don't know what they're doing and they have
Right. And you can't
don't
even
want
get
to be
mad at
better.
them, right?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
You can.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely there are a lot of those places around now. There seem to be more of them popping up, and quite a few of them actually here in Southern California. But like you said to both of you, Paul and Peter, you've got to do your homework, you've got to do your research, look at the credentials of who's training you. Look at some of the guys that have come through that school. Look
Mhm.
at the caliber of their work, because
Right.
that's going to be the testament of the true value of where you're putting your money to learn this thing. So,
Yep.
but gentlemen, it was a fantastic first episode of Victoire for Kids. To our viewers out there, we will be back. This is going to be a once a month thing. We will have other special guests joining us.
Amir, this is a huge episode, bro. You had Pretty Paul and Pretty Peter. This is the best looking video you're ever going to have, brother. The best. The best.
Listen, I agree 100% with him. I don't know why, but he makes sense.
Yeah, I couldn't have picked a better two guests to start it off with a debut episode. It's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
Well,
no, it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. Love to come on, anytime. And I'm just glad that you had myself and Peter on to start this off. This is great.
This is great. Paul, you're the man, man. This is cool.
Oh, no, brother. You are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both are true entertainers, true gentlemen, true masterminds of the pro wrestling industry. I couldn't have asked for better guests this week. But again, I will encourage everybody. There is a link in the description of the video for the St. Jude's Children's Hospital donations that we will be hopefully gathering from these episodes. Until next time, both of you gentlemen stay on the line. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. So Victor, what you must victor in your life. I am Amir. This has been Paul Roma. This has been Peter Avalon. This has been Victoire for Kids. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Victoire for Kids. We do hope that you enjoyed the content, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel, like and share our videos. It helps us spread these inspirational pieces much, much further. Victor, what you must victor in your life. This has been Victoire.